Gauranga Das Prabhu. It's an honor once again. For monks, are the 20s, 30s, 40s and 50s the same?
In 20s, we have taken a decision that we need to be away from this. Our family, friends are also trying to convince us, come back. And we are also not sure how far we will go in this path.
Can I give you a fist bump? If that's fine. I respect the warrior in you because a lot of people associate deeper sadhana. It's just 1 hour, 1.5 hours for all these years. Within that 1 hour, 1.5 hours, can your sadhana go deep?
Definitely it can go deep. Why? Because
you are the one person who's capable of giving a correct Shastra-based opinion on sexuality.
the eyes are always engaged, seeing the beautiful form of the opposite sex. In the Shastras also, lots of examples of casual sex have been described in terms of
What could have possibly happened in just your previous life that in this life, at age 22, you switched and became a monk?
when I came across the Srimad Bhagavatam, it was a deja vu feeling. So when I speak in Hindi many times, it is not that I have practiced those words.
The most beautiful thing about Sanatan Dharma for me is that we are not given extremely strict guidelines that allows you to choose.
One chants regularly, one follows the principles, one directly calls out to the Lord, one hears about the power of the holy name, how much more benefit they will do.
Narayan, 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 Narayan. At its core, the process of monkhood is to run away from Maya.
Maya is a servant of Krishna to make sure that only the qualified enter the spiritual world.
A common friend Harshil has often asked me what it's like speaking to Gauranga Das Prabhu for that long. I took a 10-second pause and then I said, it feels like having a bath, but for your soul. So, deep thank you from my heart. I wait to speak with this human being every single year. We've created 2 very, very deep, very, very epic episodes with Gauranga Das Prabhu of ISKON. This is another spiritual mentoring session that we've recorded. It's a very special episode of TRS. There are very few spiritualists, there are very few monks that I've come across in my own podcasting journey who have as deep a bank of knowledge as Gauranga Das Prabhu has. Please enjoy this episode. Very, very heartfelt, just like any of our spiritual episodes. I'm sure you're going to find a lot of value and I'm sure you're going to absorb a lot of knowledge from this one. Gauranga Das Prabhu returns on TRS. Gauranga Das Prabhu, it's an honor once again.
Thank you so much for inviting me again, and being on your show has always been a pleasure.
I know that when I see your name on my schedule, which is usually just once a year, it's always going to visit my life at a point where I really need to hear what you speak about on that day. We just did a Hindi podcast for the first time. And even though I've asked you questions on that podcast, which I've already asked you on our English podcast in the past, I still learn and relearn so many things from you. So it's just great being in your presence, honestly. Like I feel someone who dedicates themselves so much to studying always has gifts to give to the world.
I'm just fortunate to be an instrument in sharing the message of our Vedic Sanatan Dharma.
How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Thank you so much. And feeling really honored and blessed and blissful after the opening of the Sri Ram temple at Ayodhya on January 22nd.
And what specifically do you think has changed in our Kshetra being India?
Definitely. I think the youth have become very much engaged with spirituality. People are able to express their faith in a more in a manner of conviction. They just feel this is part of our DNA. When I visited Ayodhya, we did a Bhandara for a month. During that period, ISKON, we had set up also a Bhandara. So during that time, I visit 2 or 3 times in that period, I saw that generally when I go to Kumbh Mela, so on the main Snan dates, there is a large crowd. But the crowds I saw of pilgrims in Ayodhya in that period was like every day is like a Kumbh Mela.
Wow.
So I can see that the devotional fervor is spreading, and it's always very heartening to have a leader like Prime Minister Modi himself going through the entire last 10 to 11 days of all the rituals which are required to prepare oneself for a pratishtha. So people who are in the temple's ecosystem, those of us who are conservative and really expect that approach to worship in the temple should be done in a certain manner. So we all feel very gratified to see the seriousness with which even a political leader is taking towards this kind of pratishtha ceremonies and all. It increases, enhances faith of the spiritualists, and it inspires the youth that you can always wear your faith on your sleeve and nothing to be ashamed about.
So many questions. When I'm doing podcasts around Sanatan Dharma or Hinduism, there was a point in my podcasting journey where it was just artistic. For me, it was just art. Putting it out, learning more. And suddenly things became deeply political in my own reality. There's a part of me that's almost not enjoying podcasting as much as I used to, because even when we first met, I was just telling you I used to wear my pajamas and t-shirt with you, and we're here today. So all this has made me think about how the bhog of life, what would be an English translation of bhog? Enjoyment of life also brings with it some shackles, but you only understand that once you actually experience the enjoyment. So all the stuff you ever dreamt of in your own human journey early on, you'll get it, but you don't understand the kind of chains and shackles that come along with it. Fortunately, because of meeting people like yourself, all these evolved people I meet through the show, I've learned that the actual goal is detachment and just becoming an instrument. How important is this process of detachment? And or my supplemental question is, how do I increase the speed of detachment? I'm too attached to detachment right now.
Well, similar point was raised by Krishna to Arjuna, where Krishna says, Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam taya apahirta chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhi samadhav na vidhiyate. That one who is too much obsessed only with bhoga and aishwarya, with enjoyment and opulence, the deep determination required for spiritual journey, it just does not arise. So therefore, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna himself was expressing to Krishna, I want to give up everything. So Krishna told him that detachment or renunciation is not a matter of giving up your occupation, activity, or profession. Arjuna said, no, I will become beggar. I will take a kamandalu in my hand and go door to door, beg. And Krishna said, you are a Kshatriya. Because Brahman means one who fights against ignorance. Kshatriya fights against injustice. Vaishya is one who fights against insufficiency. And Shudra is one who fights against indolence. So everybody is fighting a war. So life is a war, and therefore the Gita was spoken on a battlefield, because we are dealing with conflicts all the time. And the whole premise of the Gita is, until you resolve the internal conflicts, you cannot focus on the external conflicts. You will make a mess of the external conflicts. And therefore, when Arjuna said, I will become a beggar, carry my begging bowl and ask different people, give me something, Krishna said, you are a Kshatriya, you are a fighter. When you go to beg and when people insult you, you will take the begging bowl and hit it on their head and kill the person. So therefore, don't do artificial renunciation. And therefore, the whole idea of renunciation described by Krishna to Arjuna is that manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mamai vaishya saptante atmanam matparayana. the idea of renunciation is not cutting off. कृष्ण को भौतिक जगत से तोड़ना नहीं, but आध्यात्म को जोड़ना. Not cutting off, but connecting.
Firstly, when I meet renunciants like yourself, fair to call you a monk?
Yes.
Okay. When I meet monks like yourself, and I meet a fair amount of monks through the show, I always look at all of you as at the edge of human life. Okay? I think there are different degrees of human life as well. When I meet any other human being, maybe this is an outcome of the show and meeting all the Tantra Upasaks and all also. Whenever I meet another human being, I feel like I'm meeting myself from another timeline. Like if it's someone who is incomplete, if it's someone who has bad intentions, it's probably been the journey of my soul in some other distant lifetime as well. Now, this is the negative way of looking at it, or the piche, the behind way of looking at it. But when I look forward, I see the monks who are at the edge of human life, who are done to a large degree with society, conditioning, material desire, and are now only focusing on what actually matters, which is, according to all Indic faiths, the process of achieving moksha. Am I correct in saying that? Do you think renunciants or monks are at the edge of human life as well? And maybe a supplemental question is, do you think about not all your past lives, but just your previous life? What could have possibly happened in just your previous life that in this life, at age 22, you switched and became a monk? That's the question.
That was one of the first questions my family asked, that what's going on here? And then over a period of time, they also realized that it was a calling which I could not control. And yes, when I came across the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Puran for the first time, when I started interacting with the Srimad Bhagavatam, started studying Srila Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purports to the Srimad Bhagavatam and the original shlokas, it was a deja vu feeling that I have read this before. So when I speak in Hindi many times, it is not that I have practiced those words or I do some conscious effort to speak that, but something just comes through, and I strongly feel that yes, there must have been association of this similar nature in the past. And therefore, all of us go through those experiences. So when you say renunciation or renounced order in the current context, it means that in the past lives, we have gone through all those experiences.
Material experiences.
All the same experiences with family, with money, with property, with proprietorship, with enjoyments. All of that has been there in the previous lives. So the impressions of that, because only bhog by itself is not sufficient.
Bhog is enjoyment.
Enjoyment. When you engage in enjoyment, then the concomitant result of that is that you ultimately start feeling a sense of emptiness. A feeling that akamadam, dukkha, bhaya, adi, shoka, moha. So this is a shloka by a prostitute. A prostitute, a professional prostitute in the 11th canto Srimad Bhagavatam. Her name is Pingala. So she says that Santam Samipe Ramanam Ratipradam. Within my heart is Paramatma, who is willing to give everything and fulfill all my desires. Vitta Pradam, and all the wealth I need, the spiritual, mental satisfaction, he is there to give. Nityam Imam Vihaya, but I forgot about him. I did not look towards him. I did not bother to cultivate a relationship with him. Akamadam, the result of that is I only engaged in sex life, trying to, give pleasure to the clients and this and that. What is the result? Akamadam, unfulfilled desire. Dukkha, distress. Bhaya, fear. Shoka, lamentation. Moha, illusion. tuchha bhajam. So all of this was insignificant pleasures. So therefore, when you say monks, renunciants, we are billionaires of pleasure. Why? Because our aspiration is not to go for the 25 paise pleasure of the senses, or the 50 paise pleasure of the mind, or the 1 rupee pleasure of the intellect, or the 2 rupee pleasure of the ego, but to go for the $1 billion pleasure of the soul exclusively, and to experience that and share it with others. So, therefore, contrary to popular belief, monks are not abnegating pleasure, they are only replacing their choice of pleasure with something higher, deeper, purer, more pristine, which is not visible from outside. So, interestingly, the Supreme Lord has 16 energies. So, out of the 16 energies, the energy of renunciation is known as tushti. Tushti means satisfaction. So, the premise of renunciation is unless you are deeply satisfied from the core of your heart, you cannot give up. Give up, there is nothing called giving up, it is only replacing. So, therefore, Krishna told Arjuna, understand the power of renunciation is not to give up fighting. Renunciation means you give up your identity that I am fighting for my sake, and replace it that I am fighting for the sake of Krishna and protecting Sanatan Dharma. Otherwise, Duryodhan and Arjuna both were warriors, both were expert administrators, both were expert in their Dhanurvidya. But the world glorifies Arjuna and they don't appreciate Duryodhana. Why? Because the intention with which they fought. Arjuna was fighting out of inspired by pure love, and Duryodhana was fighting inspired by ego, that I am the number one and everybody else should be inferior to me. So therefore Krishna says the process of progress in renunciation and spirituality is nothing but refining of intention. So if you want to share with our audience what exactly is the purpose of spirituality, purpose of spiritual practice, purpose of any kind of visits to the temples or satsangs or kirtans or any kind of spiritual discussion, So just like you have RO water, it refines water, right? You have oil and you get refined oil. You have steel, you get refined steel. Like that, spirituality, spiritual knowledge, spiritual sound vibration, spiritual practices, spiritual people, spiritual places,
Spiritual podcasts.
The TRS show, when the topic is on spirituality, it is for refining of desires or intentions to elevate the intention from fear to desire to at least duty, if not love.
There's a part of my heart that genuinely wishes that every episode could be spiritual. That's what I mean. That's the downside of being in media a little bit, which is why I've fallen a little out of love with this process, because, I'm advised not to ask spiritual questions in certain episodes.
But I love your authentic confession.
It's all very real. At this point, it's not a podcast. It's documentation.
Yes,
we call it a podcast.
Yes.
I don't need to, that I have like an immense, like infinite level of respect for you. Like, I hope that I'm sure you know that. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Pardon a mistake or a galti.
I think it's because you have such immense respect for spirituality and such a hankering for spirituality that anyone who represents that spirituality you automatically feel from the heart.
Yeah. So again, I'm partially embarrassed about asking you the next question because that's my societal conditioning. But I'm not asking you from a society perspective. I'm asking you from a very human life perspective.
Sure.
Okay. I think that because you are a renunciant and you've studied the Shastras as much as you have, you are the one person or one of the people who's capable of giving a correct Shastra based opinion on sexuality, which consumes so many people's journeys in so many ways. For example, I'm not just talking about the act of sex,
Right.
I'm talking about the drive for sexuality, which then becomes kind of cosmetic, kind of material. I need to accumulate wealth to be more attractive. I need to get this procedure to be more attractive and look younger. It's all driven by sexuality. So I would love to get to know a monk's perspective on both the act of sex
Right.
and casual sex, because it is a truth of our times, as well as the process of sexuality in general.
Right.
Because that's a big part of renunciation.
Yes.
So the further you get from it, the more you see it from a distance, and perhaps the more you understand it.
Right. I think it's a very important question. And let me begin by saying that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bhartarshabha. That I am sex life, which is as per the principles of Dharma, which means that sex life by itself is also a very dharmic process of how we can fulfill the desires of the Lord of creating progeny in this world. So, having given those framing statements, let me come to the quote from Mahabharata, which says, Ahara, Nidra, Bhay, Maithunam cha, Samana etat pashubhir naranam. Eating, sleeping, mating, which is sex life, and defense or fearing. These four are common to humans and animals. So if you see these four, out of these four, if you see the animals, you may see some animals are grazing. So there is no time limit for their grazing. From morning till night, searching for food, because they have been made and designed like that. Nidra also, sleeping, mating. So there is fixed times where you can do all those things. But one thing which is common, which is constant within all of us, is fearing, bhai. So there is a starting time to eating, ending time to eating, and sleeping and mating. But for fearing, there is no starting ending time. So out of the four, the most difficult to overcome is fearing, bhai. Now, when you do not do these other three properly, if your eating is not proper, then it creates disease which may increase bhai. If your sleeping is not proper, you are thinking I am Superman, Superwoman, no need to sleep at night. Night is for remaining awake, day is for sleeping. You do for some time. Nowadays you see the trends, heart attacks at 30s, 40s because of lack of sleep. In Japan, companies had to incentivize employees that those who will sleep 5.5, 6 hours, they will get this much cash, they will get promotions, this, that, go to sleep. So when you don't go to sleep properly, then also fear of disease, fear of heart attack, so much. Similarly, sex life also. If we don't do that properly, as per the injunctions described in the revealed scriptures, then it increases our bhai or fear. So therefore, the next line of this shloka says, Dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho dharmena hina pashubhis saman. That if one is focused only on these four, then one is kind of like animal. But what separates human beings from other animals is, in human life, we can engage in spiritual inquisitiveness. Otherwise, all species are doing only two things: asking questions and getting answers. Questions and answers. Right? So therefore, Munaya sadhu prishtoham bhavadbhir lokamangalam yat krita krishna samprashno yenatma suprasidat. So every species is engaged in only asking questions and working to getting answers to those questions. What are those questions in every species? Where is food? Where is sleep? Where is sex life? And where is security and shelter against fear? These are the typical questions. This is the base level questions. Now, in human form of life, we give sophisticated dimensions to these questions. But at the basic level, these are the questions.
Wow.
You are thinking, oh, where is my property? 2 BHK, 3 BHK, rental, ownership, mortgage, this, that. But ultimately, it is shelter. Bhai, how to protect myself, where I can have nidra peacefully, you know. So, clothing, this, that, everything is centered around these four only. The animals just go and do it. Human beings discuss, plan, and then do it. And then they don't realize that they are meant to do something beyond these four. That is called dharmo hitesham. So therefore, Vedanta Sutra begins with the understanding athatho brahma jigyasa. The core business in human form of life is to inquire about my spiritual journey and how to help the soul go beyond taking bodies. And that is what is known as moksha or mukti or whatever. Now, the problem is when people don't ask that question, athato brahma jigyasa. What is that question? There are 5 questions related to brahma jigyasa. Where is my soul now? Number 2, where is my soul going to go destination after death? Number 3, what will be the experience of my soul in that destination? Number 4, what is the path I want the soul to take to reach that destination? Number 5, what are the obstacles in my soul's journey? These 5 are considered part of what is known as Brahma Jigyasa.
Curiosity about
the journey of the soul. Just like you are looking forward, I want to go to Switzerland. So you are looking at, okay, I'm in Mumbai, my destination is Switzerland. Okay, should I ski in the Alps? Should I go to Geneva? Be part of World Economic Forum? So these are different experiences. Then, okay, should I take Swissair? Should I take Lufthansa? Should I take this, that? It is the journey. Okay, I don't have a visa. Oh, it's an obstacle in the journey. So all these are part of the journey for the body. Similarly, for the soul also, one is expected to do such a serious planning about the journey after death as we make plans for our vacations and holiday destinations. So therefore, when we are constantly planning about the journey of the soul, then that becomes your main focus. And then everything else is supposed to support that. Like you are day and night absorbed in one thought, how to create quality content. How can Ranveer create quality content to contribute to the peace and harmony and happiness of this world? That's your meditation. So for you, then the food becomes a supporting thing.
Yeah.
You need to keep your throat warm, so you need some hot water. You need to have a place to stay, but your meditation is on this. Everything else takes a supporting role. So therefore, when one prioritizes dharma, Sanatan Dharma, spirituality, and that experience of the destination of the soul, then ahara has to support that moksha. Nidra has to support the moksha. Bhay has to support the moksha. Maithun has to support that moksha. Because if it does not, it will hinder that particular objective. Ahar is food, eating.
So food, sleep.
Food. Ahar is food. Nidra is sleeping. Bhay is fearing insecurities, dangers, various kinds of attacks. And Maithun is sex life. So all these 4 become subservient to the original idea of how we can achieve that destination spiritually. So therefore, in the scriptures, it is enjoined that as soon as you reprioritize, people say, should I be vegetarian, non-vegetarian? Should I sleep 4 hours, 8 hours? Should I, have girlfriends and have sex? Or, should I get married? Or, what do you think about abstinence, continence? brahmacharya, this, that, everything. I said, those are all secondary things. It's like saying, should I take Lufthansa? Should I take Air India? Should I take Cathay Pacific? Should I take Swiss Air? Abba, what is your destination? First decide the destination. Once destination is decided, then all the other details of the journey, they fall backwards. So you have to work backwards with the destination first. So when you are talking to me, then you are assuming that someone who's taking spiritual journey very seriously and spiritual destination very seriously. So the responses of such a person towards eating will be from the perspective of spiritual destination. The response of a spiritualist like me, who's focused on the spiritual destination, will be different when you ask about sleeping. Yuktahara viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu, Krishna says in Gita. The sleeping must be moderate, not too extreme, not too much, not too little. It must be in such a way that timing of the sleep should be such that you are waking up at a time which supports that spiritual destination. Then your fearing should be such that I fear things which will distract my mind. I fear things which will inhibit my journey towards remembrance of Krishna. And similarly, Maithun or sex life should also be in such a way, it should not inhibit and dampen the progress of my journey towards that spiritual destination. So the boxer's diet and the gymnast diet is different because their destination is different. So accordingly, everything flows. So now, for somebody who has that spiritual destination, from that perspective, the sex life becomes an attendant duty to perform as a service to the Lord. And that is what Krishna is saying in this verse. Dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bhartarshabha. In all traditions, in the faith traditions, sex life has always been considered to be a process by which we serve the Supreme Lord, we serve the society by becoming agents and instruments to bring in souls into this world in a divine consciousness, so that that soul is able to accomplish the destination of spirituality. And therefore, we have Shodash Samskars, 16 Samskaras in Vedic tradition. So one of the Samskaras is the Garbhadhan Samskara, where the divine soul is invoked, divinity is invoked, so that even before impregnation of the husband, by the husband to the wife, there are various rituals which are done. And when the act of sex life actually happens, so auspicious souls are invoked to come and be part of the womb. So that is known as Garbhadhan Sanskara. Then once that sanskara is done, then when the soul is in the womb and in a particular month, around 7th or 8th month, they do what is known as Simanta Unnayasa Samskara, which means all the positive energies are invoked on that particular soul which is within the womb, so that all the blessings come upon that soul. And then when the soul actually comes out, when the birth happens, then there is a Jata Karma Sanskara. And then immediately after that, there is Vidyarambha, Chudakarna, various kinds of sanskaras where education begins. So the whole idea is to transform the impressions. What is that transformation of impression? Basic idea through the samskara. Samskara means a method by which impressions on the mind are replaced. You are deleting old files and replacing those old files with new files. Old memories replaced with new memories, new impressions, new narratives, new priorities. And how does that happen? Through the process of chanting of the mantras and exposing to various kinds of rituals. So the main impression we want to change is, I am the controller, I am the proprietor, I am the enjoyer. That is the typical narrative which the conditioned soul carries. It is called Mithya Abhiman, Mithya Ahankar, false ego. To be replaced with the real ego, which is Bhoktaram Yagyasapatam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. The Supreme Ishwar is the controller. He's the proprietor. He's the enjoyer. I am the servant. So therefore, that's what these sanskaras aim to achieve through this. So many people feel this is all rituals and this and that. No. In Vedic Sanatan Dharma, all these were connected to each other in one beautiful, seamless method by which the entire society, like a relay race, was helping the soul's consciousness to elevate from here to there. And every member in society played a part. In fact, even before my birth, my mother was sharing in an interview some months ago that there was a whole group of ladies who were chanting Shankaracharya's Saundarya Lahari shlokas just one day before I was born. So all of those have a powerful impact. In fact, there is an interesting story that a lady was pregnant and she would see a particular television serial on a regular basis. And when she gave birth to this child would keep crying and would become quiet only when that serial would be switched on. So therefore, when you speak about sex, from the perspective of those who are practicing or wanting to achieve something spiritual, that being their priority, they focus on their priority, that becomes their sadhana, to get that dhan. And they give less priority to these other things and align these activities with that priority. Like somebody is in Kota studying for IIT, may not watch movies for months together. So it's not that, the movies don't give pleasure, but the movies give pleasure, but he has decided to abnegate that pleasure to the higher pleasure, which he will get when the results are announced and he says, oh, you are in the top 100 in IIT. That pleasure he is prioritizing over the pleasure of watching a movie. So if people say, hey, what do you mean sex doesn't have pleasure or what? Ye kya baatein kar rahe ho aap? So no, there is pleasure in the act of sex. But when a person prioritizes spiritual life, so that pleasure, when the soul gets connected to the super soul through an eternal relationship, it releases a certain degree and quantum and quality of pleasure, which is far superior to the pleasure of sex. And that's what has inspired people through millennia to be able to control sex life and prioritize spiritual pleasure. So therefore, we should never think that this can be done artificially. A person cannot be sitting in Kota, not studying for IIT, and just say that I will not watch movie. No, his not watching movie is directly interlinked with his prioritizing, his absorption in studying his syllabus and writing the test so that he qualifies in the IIT.
Like, as a human, you'll always have that urge to do something.
Yes.
So transfer that urge to the higher goal.
Exactly. So Krishna says in Gita that nahi tishtati kshanamapi jatu tishtati. That nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtati akarmakrit. We cannot remain without activity even for one moment. Even for one moment, we cannot remain inactive. Therefore, dovetailing is important. Sublimating is important. So I won't say that those who are practicing spirituality abnegate sex life. Rather, you should say they sublimate their sex desire by going for a higher purpose and a higher goal.
The most beautiful thing about Sanatan Dharma for me, being born in a Hindu family, is that we are not given extremely strict guidelines that allows you to choose.
Correct.
For the first 25 years of my life, I ate a tremendous amount of non-veg. I was never told by anyone that, listen, if you eat non-veg, you are not a Hindu. I used to still pray, I used to still do my mantra jap. Eventually, when I discovered the path of yoga, I realized, okay, this is a way for me to go deeper into Sanatan Dharma.
Yes.
But this path requires me to drop off my non-veg.
Correct.
That's all I did. Again, no one pushed me. It was my own choice.
Yes.
Which is why I don't like it when people put labels on Hinduism. Ki you're Hindu if you do this, you're not Hindu if you do that. It's very open. And we've been given shastras to study from, to absorb. There's different facets of Sanatan Dharma. There's a whole Tantra facet where people eat non-veg and are still like practicing because that's that path. All I'm trying to say here is you spoke about the secondary questions. We've been given guidelines.
Correct.
If you do this, this will happen. If you do that, that will happen. And then it's for you to choose. There is a concept called free will.
Yes.
99.999% of people who are watching this podcast or this clip are not going to give up on their sex life, are still going to gain pleasure from their sex life.
Right.
I don't think that the purpose here is to attach guilt to that pleasure from the sex life. It's just to have a better understanding of the purpose of sex within human life.
Absolutely.
So from this same perspective of a deeper understanding, my next question to you is actually about casual sex. Because if you're married to someone, you will have sex to produce a child. Both partners will have urges. So you will engage in pleasure-oriented sex. And I am assuming that over the course of marriage, over 30, 40 years, eventually your libido or your urges reduce a little bit, which is why you see older people turning towards God, couples actually showing up at meditation centers, temples. I'm assuming that that's what happens in life. But what are the guidelines about like casual sex? Has anything been spoken about its effects on the soul, mind, body?
See, when we are speaking about guidelines speak about both positive and negative, which is anvay and vyatirik. Anvay means what to follow, vyatirik means what to avoid. So, as you know, that depending on what choices you make, you get results. So, therefore, in the Shastras also, lots of examples of casual sex have been described in terms of extramarital relationships and somebody going after someone. Like, for example, in 6th canto Bhagavatam, there is Ajamil's pastime. Ajamil was a Brahman family, very nice, he was completely Ayam hi Shruti Sampanna, Sheela Vritta Gunalaya. He had all the good qualities. Shruti Sampanna, he had studied all the Vedas. Mrdu, very, very gentle. Satyavak, Mantravit, Shuchi, all the good qualities. But suddenly he saw in the forest when he had gone to collect firewood, he saw a young lady being embraced by a young man behind a tree. And he just saw that for some time. And that entire picture hit him at that moment in such a way that the Kama Dev in the Sanatan Dharma tradition, Cupid or lust, is presided over by a god known as Kama Dev. So Kama Dev has 5 arrows. When a man and woman, when they say they get attracted to each other, right? So the first kind of attraction which begins is called darshanam, when through the eyes one see each other. When there is darshanam, then gradually it goes to the second stage, where when you start seeing each other, you start feeling happy. That is called harshanam. There is pleasure. Then gradually what happens is the intensity of the emotions grows and it becomes roshanam, where it intensifies and various other anxieties also start cropping up in that relationship. And then in due course of time, when one start realizing that when we began the relationship, it was hunky-dory, but now so many other egoistical things are coming in the way. And the promise with which I got into the relationship is not being fulfilled. So that's known as the 4th stage, shoshanam, when one starts feeling exploited or trapped in a relationship. And then one becomes totally hopeless and starts searching for something beyond a man-woman relationship. That is called maranam, where one feels that There was a time in life when I thought sex life was life. There is nothing beyond sex life. But now you become maranam, which means you understand that, okay, that was one dimension at a particular stage in life. But there are other truths in life and other experiences in life which need to be embraced.
Like when you're a child, you think that your love for toys will last forever.
Something like that.
This is just love for toys in adulthood.
Correct. So, absolutely. So, that is how the whole concept of the ashrams was also designed: Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. So, the whole idea was, if you read in the Shastra, all of the kings, they had queens. So, now we are speaking of, monogamy, and polygamy is not allowed as per law. But in the Vedic tradition, if you read about all the kings, they had so many wives and all of that. So the idea was not to be obsessed with a man-woman sexual relationship. The idea was to focus on a higher pleasure. That once you start focusing on the higher pleasure, these things are automatically taken care. Right? For example, food. You eat food and the hunger is satiated. So it's a need of the body. So like that, sex life is also a need of the body. But the whole Vedic Sanatan Dharma, the difference between animalistic life and Vedic life is not that one is not allowed to fulfill one's appetite, one is not allowed to fulfill one's desires, but how you can fulfill your desires while following the higher laws. How to have pleasure while fulfilling the purpose of human form of life. So when one has pleasure without any idea of the purpose of human form of life, that is what Mahabharata calls as Pashubhir Narana. And one has pleasure while fulfilling and supporting and aligning with the purpose in life. That is what is known as dharmic life. So therefore, if you go into all these traditions, then finally Ajamil, he kicked out his wife and brought this prostitute to his house. And he started having children. And then the youngest child from that, was named as Narayan. Few sages came to him and came to the wife, and they blessed the wife that when the youngest child is born, name him Narayan. So at the time of death, Ajamil suddenly saw Yamadutas. You like that topic.
Favorite topic.
When the Yamadutas came in, Ajamil cried out to his son, Narayan, Narayan, Narayan. And the Vishnudutas came, and there was a conversation, and Ajamil was saved from going to Yamaloka. So then, in that pastime, the concluding verse says, Mriyamano Harer Nama Grinna Putropacharitam Ajamilopi Agaddama Kimpuna Shraddhagrinan. 4 points are mentioned in this pastime. Ajamil cried out Lord's name only at time of death, very, very deeply. Number 2, he called out to his son. Number 3, he was still sinful till death. And 4th, he never heard about power of holy name. Still he got the benefit. So this is known as Kaimutiki Nyaya, which means if with little connection he got so much of benefit, what if one chants regularly, one follows the principles, one directly calls out to the Lord, one hears about the power of the holy name, how much more benefit they'll get.
Narayan, 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 Narayan.
So that's the idea. So I think, your question is very apt. Previously, when people would have sex life, it was between their partners. The whole concept of bombardment about sex life through media has created a very artificial situation where practically the ether is filled with this topic so much that it is bombarding on young minds and creating various kinds of perversions in their mind and making them feel, because repetition automatically creates impression.
Yeah. When we say that modern day children are born into the world of social media, we also must say that modern day children are born in the world of sexualization.
Absolutely.
So in some ways, it is beyond those children's control. Which makes me question on a slightly deeper level, is this also the will of God?
See, Lord has created 4 yugas: Satya Yuga, Golden Age, Treta Yuga, then goodness comes down further, Dwapara Yuga, Rajogun increases, Kali Yuga, Tamogun is on the rise. So, in that sense, yes, for the ambience in Kali Yuga to grow, Kali Yuga means 2 things: quarrel, conflict, and number 2, hypocrisy.
Quarrel and hypocrisy.
Quarrel and hypocrisy. So, when you are with people, there will be conflicts and quarrel. When people are alone, there is tendency towards hypocrisy. So, this is a big challenge and dilemma in Kali Yuga. If you are with people, there is problem. If you are alone, there is problem. So, overall, Kali Yuga is represented by weakening of the mind. So, when the mind becomes weaker and weaker and weaker, the ability to say no to temptations goes down. What to speak of when there is such continuous bombardment? So, therefore, I must say that as parents, it becomes a very huge responsibility to train the children in these kinds of dangers right from the beginning, because the kind of training we got when we were growing up was when there was no television also when I was growing up. So that was a different ecosystem. But today when children are growing up, parents may need to fast forward the transmission of warnings about what to beware of in their lives, because the amount of attacks on the mind and the psyche of kids nowadays has grown exponentially compared to our generation in the 70s. So I think it's a major responsibility.
Yeah.
Just to conclude, and therefore we need hundreds of Ranveers who can create positive, healthy, nourishing, enlivening, consciousness elevating content by which people can actually learn to think deeper, live their lives with conviction and integrity, and transform their character.
I have a very dear friend of mine. Like, he's what you would call a chaddi buddy. His name is Zarwan Bansha. Okay. And he's a very intelligent guy, very well read. And we would debate on philosophy a lot. And throughout my 20s, I said no to parties, gave up non-veg, gave up alcohol. And he's also actually on the same path. He's also in his core a renunciant. So when we debate, he used to say one very interesting point. He said that if we're meant to not go towards pleasures, why do they exist in the first place? And I'd say, I don't know. But my idols, which were Joe Rogan, David Goggins, all these guys who celebrate discipline, they call themselves disciple of discipline. David Goggins says things like, you strengthen your mind by denying yourself occasionally. And denying yourself is a skill you need to teach children. When I was a kid and I took up martial arts for the first time, now it's become a part of my breath to think like a martial artist. But somewhere, it basically gives you discipline on some core level. Hey, ensure you make it to this weight category. Ensure you get the technique right. You are denying yourself of looseness. Best decision I made. My question is, on a very human level, I have benefited from denying myself of pleasures. Spiritual journey has gone further. Even when I don't want to meditate or pray, I'll force myself to meditate and pray. And then there's a positive outcome. But that process of denying yourself, it hurts a little bit on the inside, even today, after so much discipline and so much of strictness in the routine. Is the purpose of life, according to the Bhagavad Gita, to kind of create that internal discomfort just a little bit? Is that internal discomfort a good thing? And how do you know where to draw the line of that internal discomfort? Because in many ways, any form of discipline is like whipping yourself just a little bit. You want to eat that cake. You want to waste time. You want to chill and watch TV. Process of picking up the remote and switching off the TV, that hurts on the inside. So how do you know how far to take discipline? Or should you just make it an infinite trade? And I say that because the 31-year-old in me is trying to make my diet very boring. One, because the more boring food gets, the better the body looks, and I am in a cosmetics based industry. But secondly, when you detach yourself from food, I feel like you teach your own brain detachment in order to detach yourself from pain as well. Uh, let's talk about that internal strife.
You're right.
And do you also feel that?
Well, by Krishna's grace, I have been cooking in the kitchens in ISKON for many years. So I've already cooked almost 3.5 million meals. So I make a Thai curry for 10,000 people.
Wow.
So not the most austere of food, but I'm just saying that you asked a very fantastic question on the crossroads of transitioning from these desires to those desires where control goes into autopilot mode, where it just
you're hitting the kid
Yes.
inside you just a little bit.
right. Technically, in Sanskrit, that word is known as tapa. Tapa. Tapa means tapasya. The word tapa means heat, giving heat, tap dena. So, tapa basically means giving some pain or heat to our mind and the senses. So, there is a verse in Gita where Krishna says, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. So, the beautiful question which you just asked, the answer for that lies in this one shloka of Bhagavad Gita when we unpack it. So, Vishaya means objects. So, when we look at objects, people may think I eat rice, I eat roti. The eyes eat form. The eyes are hungry for eating, devouring beautiful form. The eyes are hungry to avoid ugly forms. Like the food we eat, we try to avoid things which will not taste good. The ears are hungry to taste sound which we find pleasing, like somebody glorifying me. Okay, I like that. Why? It is heartening, that sound. So all our senses are looking for Vishaya. Vishaya means objects. To eat. Eyes, ears, nose. Like that for the skin is looking for touch with another skin. That is the sex life. So therefore, this Pancha Indriya, the five senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, they are looking for corresponding objects to interact with. And through that interaction, the expectation is it should generate pleasure. The tongue, when it comes in touch with rasgulla, pleasurable. Comes in touch with neem juice, is kadwa. I said, oh. So therefore, we have raga, which is pleasure, attachment, and dvesha, hate, avoidance. So acceptance and avoidance, raga, attachment, and dvesha, hate, they are concomitant. They are two sides of the same coin. So therefore, the whole idea of yoga or practice of spirituality is to rise above this raga and dvesha and understand that my daily interactions are not supposed to be obsessed about whether my eyes get pleasure or my tongue gets pleasure or my ears get pleasure. My meditation should be Ishwar. He should get pleasure. So therefore, automatically the narrative changes. So I see, oh, this is a beautiful dress. Previously, I think it will look so good on me. Now I start thinking it will look so good on Radha Gopinath, on Radha Madan Mohan, on Radha Govind. Oh, this food is so delicious. It will give me pleasure. Now I say, no. Hare, how I can offer it as bhoga so the Lord will enjoy. So the perspective changes. So that is what is known as Vishaya. Vishaya is there. Rasgulla is there. Gulab Jamun is there. Vinivartante. Rather than thinking, I will enjoy, I start thinking, how can I make this or cook this so that like Yashoda Mai was feeding Krishna and pleasing him, I want to please Krishna. It is called Vinivartante. Nivartante. So you know, nivartante. Vartante. Vartan means occupation. Nivartan means retirement. Seva nivritta ho gaye, we say. He has retired, voluntary retirement or permanent retirement. So nivartante means retirement. Retiring the engagement of the senses with the objects. Now, nivartante means forcefully. Vi means visheshena nivartante, by force, applying pressure, and as you say, giving a little pain to make that sense retire from the engagement with the objects. Otherwise, the eyes are always engaged, eyes are constantly employed, seeing the beautiful form of the opposite sex. So there is no retirement for the eyes for that. But vinivartante means we impose a retirement, that no, don't just keep looking like this with lustful glances to try to enjoy. Retire from that and then look at objects which are purifying. So that is called Vishaya Vinivartante Niraharasya. Ahar. The objects are ahar for the senses. So you fast those senses. Start fasting the senses. When you fast for a week, you lose weight. When you fast your eyes from glancing at beautiful, objects for sexual pleasure, then gradually that tendency for lust within weakens. So your lust within loses weight. Kam vasna halki ho jati hai. Like that, niraharasya means that. So you deny giving those objects to the senses. Rasavarjam. So when that rasa is stopped, rasa varjam, varjit karo. Don't allow that ras, to that particular sense. So gradually when you do that, you have experienced, when you do that rasa varjam with respect to your health. So you get health benefits. Like that, one gets spiritual benefits. Rasa varjam. Rasa varjam. Varjana, to stop, to prevent, to not allow those rasas. Rasopi asya. Even though taste is there, if given a chance, one would go and enjoy. One would love people to keep glorifying me and keep telling them, hey, speak about me, speak about me. One would love enjoying sex life with somebody even though it is not authorized, even though it is crossing the boundary of ethics. Rasopyasya. One may have the taste for that. But rasa varjam, I decide, no, I will not cross the boundary. Param drishtva. Param drishtva means from where that strength comes to say no, when you experience a higher pleasure. Param drishtva. Drishtva means seeing. When you see something higher, you are able to say no to the lower. Then because of that, when people practice spirituality, that experience fills them so much. They are filled with spiritual ahar that they are able to say no to this other ahar. Param drishtva nivartate. They are actually able to retire the engagement of their senses from those sense objects. So therefore, the important word in this entire verse is rasopi asya. Us कार्य में रस है. Right? The diabetic has a taste for eating that sweet, but they are stopping. And now they have other alternatives. And sometimes when you start denying your tongue of sugar, over a period of time, fruits and other vegetables start appearing very sweet because you start regaining your natural taste. So when the natural taste is revived, then all these are automatically overcome. And therefore there was a great king called King his name is Yamunacharya, who was a king before. And as a king, he was engaged in all kinds of sense gratification, enjoyed thoroughly. Then when he becomes the great saint Yamunacharya, he writes in this verse where he says that I was engaged in indulging in all kinds of sex life before, But now, after having experienced the sweetness, the sublime experience of spiritual life, of bhakti, of devotion to Ranganath Swami, even when I think of sex life, my lips curl in distaste and I spit at the thought. So therefore, it's a matter of reconditioning. Like many times when people, they take cigarette, youth, they take cigarette, first time they start coughing like anything. People take alcohol, they find it very, very bitter. They can't handle it. But over some time, with the kind of association they have, they get conditioned to those tastes. So that has to be reconditioned. And when you do the reconditioning, this becomes normal and that becomes abnormal. And I say, if somebody says, this is gulab jamun, is it sweet or not? Yes. Is it tasty or not? Yes. And I say, I am giving you this gulab jamun for 1 crore rupees. Want it? He says, no. Are you mad? Why should I take a gulab jamun for 1 crore rupees? So the Shastras are saying, your obsession with all these sense objects. Yes, sex life has pleasure. But in return for that pleasure, if the price tag is 1 crore for a gulab jamun, it's not worth it. So that's the whole idea, that nobody is saying there is no pleasure. Nobody is denying the pleasure. The pleasure is there. But we are looking at grades of pleasure and simultaneously analyzing concomitant pain one has to go through for the pleasure which one experiences. Because there are no free lunches in this world. For everything you do, you have to pay a tax. So as long as the pizza you're eating in the restaurant, you're enjoying, and then at the end, what comes? Bill. So you have to pay the bill. So that's what life in this world is all about. So a combination of two things is important to help you transition peacefully. One is the experience of pleasure. And the second is the execution of your discrimination. So the experience of pleasure gives you the base inspiration that, oh, it is worth going in this direction. Then you have to execute your discrimination that, oh, Rasgulla is 1 crore. Okay, forget it. Although it looks attractive, you are tempted, but still the cost, discrimination, you're using discrimination. Is it worth it? Not worth it? Worth it? Not worth it? That discrimination with the intelligence helps the mind controlled from both sides.
How do you strengthen that execution?
Only one way. Sangha. Association.
People around you.
Positive people who are doing that better than you. Just like if you want to upgrade your skills, what do?
I hang out with Gauranga Das Prabhu.
You hang out with other creators, you hang out with people who are kind of mentoring you in this space and stuff like that. So similarly, it is known as Sangha, that Srimad Bhagavat Arthanam Aswade Rasike Saha Sajati Ashaye Snigdhe Sadhu Sangha Swatovare. Sadhu Sangha Swato, those who are better. And in that, the weakness which is known as Hriday Daurbalyam, weakness of the heart. Just like a wooden wall looks wooden, strong, but inside there is termite. You knock it, it falls. Similarly, nowadays, people are looking very strong, this, that, but inside the mind, because of lack of self-control, the lack of ability to say no to temptations, because of a habit of surrendering continuously to sense pleasures, they have become termite-ridden from within. Look strong from outside, but they will just collapse at just a little bit of touch, some little bit of change in direction of life, and they can't handle it. So I think the ability to overcome temptations, control the mind, and say no to pleasures is not just a choice, but I think it's the need of today's society to save the young generation from really losing control over their mind and their life.
the best time to actually exercise that muscle of discipline, basically, when we're talking about execution of discrimination.
Yes.
Basically, the muscle of discipline again.
Absolutely.
Best time to do that is in childhood.
Yes.
Um,
Tell me about something which you're remembering from your childhood.
Honestly, I'm remembering my teenage and the first time I drank alcohol. First time I did other naughty things. Especially with intoxication, I wish I had not done it the first time. It would have been easier. But, everyone's got their own individual journey. So I had to go through all that to tell people, don't do it. And even my environment was like that, right from childhood. I'm not blaming my parents. It's a part of Punjabi culture to drink, like in modern day society. So I would see relatives drinking around me. I didn't have a full alcohol intoxicated experience as a kid, but I remember tasting it from someone's glass and it was extremely bitter and I hated it. And somewhere you're a teenager, you see friends doing it, you've already seen it at home a little bit. Then you end up doing it. Then you have that first great alcohol experience and then it becomes a thing. Before you know it, it becomes a problem. Thank God I gave it up early. But again, with children watching this, just now I truly believe I've become an uncle and I'll say don't do it the first time itself. Like, whether it's drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, the easiest way to create discipline about those things is not to do it the first time.
And that's why Gita says discipline is fusion of intention with action. And I think, your generation should think more deeper on how we can reintegrate dharmic principles in all our cultural expressions, like celebration of festivals, celebration of weddings, celebration of various kinds of, festivities in our own life, successes. Nowadays, because of the influence from the West, it seems like when people are, when they pass an exam, they celebrate with drinks. When they have a wedding, they celebrate with drinks. When they have to celebrate anything, that has become the norm.
Culture.
That has become the culture. So I would say that that's not the original Vedic Sanatan Dharma culture, tradition. And because of that, overall families are breaking apart. Relationships are becoming very, very complicated. And my biggest fear is the binding factor. See, if the cement is there, but if you don't add water, the cement will just be powder, right? What binds the cement is the water. So what binds families together traditionally in India has been spirituality and dharma. And as that is becoming more and more disconnected, especially with a certain generation of ours, I see where systematic understanding was not given and now they are not able to give to the next.
Yeah.
And there is a disconnect.
Yeah.
And that is something which is very worrying, that very soon the fabric of our society should not become something like in the West, where it is just transactional and not transformational.
Transformational. Okay. I've never actually asked you this exact question. I always wanted to in the past. When I was 22, I met someone from a shamanic faith. Shamanic is South America.
Okay.
Like one of the Amazonian.
Yes.
He was someone who studied the shamanic faith. And he told me something very interesting. He said that in their faith, the way they look at God is what he described. And then as I podcasted with people in Sanatan Dharma, in Sikhi, I figured that it's the exact same explanation. I had a Buddhist monk as well. These are at least the limited number of religions I've covered on the show. And I intend on covering more religions.
Right.
But I've seen that it all boils down to the same visualization that shamanic researcher gave me. He said that imagine that God is a human being sitting somewhere. And that same human being is built up out of cells in the way our body is built up out of cells. Now imagine he takes his most active cell, which is his brain cell. He takes one brain cell out. And the brain has billions and billions of cells. But he takes one brain cell out and says that I'm going to take it from the brain and I'm going to place it on my palm. Now the mission for that brain cell
Mhm.
is to find its way back to the original point, which is the brain.
Right.
So he said that that human being that we're talking about is God,
Mhm.
and each of those brain cells are the different souls that we meet, the different human souls.
Mhm.
And that process of crawling from the palm, which could be earth in our case,
Right.
back to the brain is the process of all religions. That's
Right.
what every single school of spirituality is pointing you back towards.
Mm.
That go back to your source.
Mhm.
You are just a temporary visitor
Right.
here. Reality begins after death.
Mm.
All these things. And the upward karmic climb, like as you clean up your karmas, as you do good karmas, makes you move along that path faster from the palm till the brain.
Mm.
Would you like to add anything, or would you like to give us the Bhagavad Gita perspective on this?
Yes.
And do you disagree with anything like
Mm.
in this visualization?
In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Prakrite guna sammudhaha sajjante guna karmasu tan akritsna vidomandan Krishna vin na vichalet. So he says, Krishna vin means one who may be practicing his faith based on Vedic Sanatan Dharma, already convinced about this path and everything. Na vichalayet. He says, don't debate and don't discount and don't criticize. Who? Prakrite guna sammudha, under the influence of modes of nature, sattvagun, rajogun, tamogun. Sajjante, one becomes attached, guna karmasu, to a certain conception of guna and karma. And when you say guna karma, basically means those modes affect one's thinking, one's feeling, one's willing, one's actions. Everything is influenced by the modes. So therefore, even within the Puranas, there are 18 Puranas, 6 are in mode of goodness, 6 are in mode of passion, 6 are for those in mode of ignorance. Like a medical doctor. A doctor has a whole repertoire of medical equipments and medicines. The goal of the doctor is to heal the pain, to relieve the pain. Like that, the various conceptions about spirituality, God, faith, is all centered around how a patient in a particular place will be inspired to take some medicine. Right? So, something may be here, but if the person is not willing to come, at least they begin here. Like that, varieties exist in spiritual understanding and faiths because of millions of categories of faith or shraddha within our heart and mind, which is a mixture of unlimited permutations of combinations of sattvagun, rajogun, and tamogun. If you take all of this and you mix, you get unlimited combinations. Just like in in a lighter mood, in Punjabi cuisine in restaurants, there are only 5 things in one sense, like Indian. Aloo, potato, cauliflower, cabbage, capsicum, tomato. You mix this, and then but you go and see in the restaurant menu list, you will see a whole range of items. But those who are experienced in the restaurant, they know they make a certain gravy and they keep mixing this, that, everything. So therefore, in all these traditions also, whether any corner of the world you go, it is the kind of faith people have in expressing the relationship with Ishwar. So therefore, Gita crystallizes all this into 5 elements. Jeev, the soul, praying to Ishwar. And Ishwar is controlling 3 things: Prakriti, nature; Kala, time; Karma, action. So therefore, atheist or materialist means he discounts Ishwar and says, I am controlling nature, Prakriti. Whatever I work, I get the result. Time is on my control. I can decide when I will do what and when I will get success, when I will get failure. Timing is in my control. Then karma. Yes, I can do what I plan to do. I can generate the resources I want to do my action. So I have full control over my action, my timing, and all the resources required to make that action successful. Such a person is called materialist, or in Sanskrit, bhogi. Then, when the result of this bhoga is chinta, anxiety, right? So, in the 16th chapter Gita, Krishna says that idam adyamaya labdham imam prapsya manoratham idam astidam itame bhavishyati punarjanam. Adyo janmanasmi konyosti sadrishamya ishwaroham aham bhogi siddhoham balwan sukhi. He says, so far I had this, now I have this. I am Ishwar, I am bhogi, I am perfect, I don't need anybody. But when anxiety catches up, things don't go as per plan, then person starts thinking, is there somebody who's superior? And when they look up, they see Ishwar. That is called yoga. So therefore, yoga technically means connecting of the soul with the super soul, with Ishwar. When the Jeev connects with Ishwar, it is called yoga. Now, the manifestations of this yoga across the world, across traditions, across countries, is millions and millions of varieties. So the way the Supreme Ishwar has created this world, as you rightly said, he has kept the most fundamental asset and property of the soul untouched. And what is that most fundamental asset and property of the soul? Free will and choice. He does not impose. So therefore, some jiva wants to express their relationship with Ishwar in one way, another jiva expresses in another way. All are beautiful expressions and all have their nuances and their plus and minuses and their flavors. So therefore, in a family, different children, but the different children are relating with the father and mother in different flavors. So that's the idea.
Are all of us Ishwar from different timelines?
Now, all of us are Jiva. We are serving the Ishwar. Ishwar is the supreme. So, well, within the Vedic tradition and within other traditions, the relationship of the Ishwar Jiva is defined in different ways. In the impersonalist tradition, Advaita tradition, so the Jiva is covered over by Maya, and when the Maya removed, they realize I am Ishwar. Like that. So that's how they consider Prakriti. Whereas in the Vaishnava tradition, they consider the Jiva to be eternally part and parcel and eternally servant of the Ishvara in eternity. Even in Baddhavastha, even in Muktavastha. So these are the different schools of thought within the philosophy. And all these debates are very interesting. When people say, why there should be so many debates and so many conflicts? That is the whole idea of variety. Variety adds the flavor. And all these different perspectives are very important because at least a person is removing his, obsession with the senses and focusing on the debate. So better to have conflicts in philosophy than have conflicts, trying to hurt each other or have conflicts of the senses with the sense objects and becoming morose and depressed. So therefore, any differences of opinion in philosophy in the Vedic tradition was always encouraged. And therefore, even the kings would regularly hold debates where openly people could come and express different points of view, express, defend, understand, because dialogue is the process of evolution. So discipline is the fusion of intention with action. And the whole idea of philosophical dialogue is to enable that discipline more and more.
I meet all kinds of people through the show. The only people I want to become like at this point in my life are the monks. There's some aspects I get inspired by when I meet a big entrepreneur or an athlete. But I truly, as a human being, want what the monks have, which is peace, which is where the next question is coming from. At this point, I've begun to ask a lot of older men, at least, because I relate to them, I'm a man. I've begun to ask a lot of older men about what the 20s was like versus the 30s versus the 40s versus the 50s. For monks, are the 20s, 30s, 40s and 50s the same? As in, like, because Monk life is, it's straightforward.
Hmm.
I remember the last podcast you had spoken about 8 minus 1. Am I right? There are 8 things you need to be concerned.
Yes. That's perfect.
Uh, I'd love for you to begin the answer at that
With that,
8 minus
okay,
1
sure,
revision.
sure.
I'm sorry if I'm getting the numbers wrong, but I know you got what I'm...
It is 8 only.
It's
You're
8?
right.
Okay.
Yes.
But also when you take up monkhood, are your 20s, 30s, 40s and 50s different?
Yes.
It is.
It is.
Oh. Wow.
Yes.
Curious.
Yes.
Let's revise that 8 minus 1 thing because I found that very, very fascinating.
Yes.
And it made me feel so detached from materialism
Correct.
after I learned that truth.
Correct.
So for those of you who are listening to Sir for the first time, this is one of my key takeaways from the history of knowing.
No, even
this
if they have
human.
heard it before, they will not remember it for sure. So repetition is always required and important. So the Bhagavad Puran quotes this verse: Atma Jaya Suta Agara Pashu Dravina Bandhushu Rajye Cha Avikale Nityam Virudam Mamatam Jaho. The 8 are first body. 8 types of identities we form. My first identity is I am beautiful, ugly, healthy, immunity is strong, not strong, diseased, not diseased. So identity. When my identity is I am healthy and I visit the doctor, there is a CT scan, MRI, and I come out, I'm morose. Why? The doctor has said something is growing within you. Doesn't look good. So my identity changes from I am healthy to I have XYZ disease. Second, Jaya. This is my wife. This is my husband. Our relationship is like this. And when some relationship issue happens, sometimes the family breaks. So it affects the identity of each person. And people take time to come out of that trauma, of that separation. Sutta. This is my child. Oh, he's brilliant. He is powerful. He's engineer. He's doctor. He's started accountant. He's topper, this, that. And then suddenly something happens in career, mid-career or academics. And then the parents are looking at the child. Hey, why did you do like this? And many times children can't face that because their identity is always my parents are proud of me. And when they do something by which they feel they will be ashamed, many of them sometimes feel so ashamed that they take their lives. So the identity of the parents with the children, children with the parents, Sutta. Fourth, Agara, my identity with my house. This is my house. This is rental house. This is paid for house. This is big house. This is a house on a hill. Oh, it has a... So that identity. And when something happens to that house, because of some reasons, economic meltdown, one has to quit that house and come to a smaller place. It hits the identity. Pashu, vehicle. Oh, it's a small car. Let me take a bigger car. Or now in America, it's Tesla. Are you not on a Tesla? So it's an identity. Dravina, money. Wealth. Net worth. Grow this. Okay. Everybody nowadays, young generation, they say, we want to become unicorn, billionaires, net worth. Bandhushu, social acceptance, rejection. It's a big thing. And many times people go into depression because they feel they're not accepted. On social media, if people don't get likes or something, they sometimes they become morose. Oh, I'm not liked or what. So it kind of social rejection. Bandhushu. Then, and that's why many times when, for especially media celebrities, when the media starts bombarding them with negative stuff, they start feeling, or even on internet, some people start trolling you. You start feeling, oh, I'm being rejected. I'm not being accepted. It's painful. Bandhushu. My bandhus are not accepting me. I want affection and love, appreciation from my bandhus, not criticism, not, aspersions on my character being cast and this and that. Then last 8th is Rajye, is when I speak, how much I am able to move this world. So all of us are differing in our status based on how much of the world moves when we express our opinion. So that's the difference between prime minister and president and some normal person. That when that person says how much of the world moves, and when someone who's just a simple clerk or a watchman, when they say something, how much of the world moves, how much of influence we carry. So sometimes it is all connected to career. So people go into midlife crisis. Nowadays, layoffs, a big problem. Even just the thought of the layoff creates, today I'm like senior vice president and so, and the next day, pink slip. Where is your identity? Where is the influence? So these are the 8. So when we have these 8, as a monk, we are directly connected only with the first. When you say -1, which is body.
Which is?
Body. The body I have to take care of the body. Atma. But wife, Sutta, children, house, Pashu, vehicles, Dravina, wealth, society, Bandhushu, social acceptance, rejection, Rajya, career. So technically these are not there, right? But since we are part of society, we are connected to all of this to use them for a spiritual purpose. So I use vehicle to travel. It may be a temple vehicle. There is money, people who are giving donations for running our projects, running our various initiatives. Social acceptance. I am trying to impress people with the fact that practicing spirituality is good for you. So I need social acceptance for the purpose of them taking spiritual life seriously. If a group of people say, yeah, you got a great message, but I don't even want to talk to you. So how will I be able to share my message if they can't even sit 5 minutes? So we cannot live without these. But the degree of interaction we have with these and the flavor of the interaction depends on which side you are, whether you are monk or a part of the world. As part of the world, you are doing most of these things for yourself. It's part of your own life. Here we are part of society, but still connected to all of this. So therefore, coming to your question, that in 20s, right, we have taken a decision that we need to be away from this. But the effect of all of this is strong. The temptations are strong.
As a monk, in monk life.
Yeah, because we have just taken that decision. Right? So all of these are there. And the bombardments are happening from all around. Right? And our family, friends are also trying to convince us, come back. It's just a temporary thing. And we are also not sure how far we will go in this path. So in the 20s, the level of uncertainty is high.
And I'm sure many people drop off as well.
Yes. 100%.
Because
across all traditions.
It's not easy.
It's war. How can you say there is a war without casualty?
Can I give you a fist bump? If that's fine. I respect the warrior in you on an individual level. Though you are also just a reflection of God or myself, I think. But on a differentiating level, I respect how tough you are to even stick through this whole journey of monkhood.
So Arjuna asked this question to Krishna. My dear Lord, when will this battle with the sense objects end? 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s? Is there a retirement age for these sense objects? So Krishna says, Shaknoti haiva yah sodum prak sharira vimokshanat. Till the soul leaves the body, these bombardments will continue. So spiritual warrior cannot let down his guard till the last moment.
Coming back to that timeline, sir. 20s.
So 20s. I'm just entered the ashram, started studying the Gita, started studying the Bhagavatam. So in 94 to 2000 period, when I was in the ashram, my schedule would be 4 to 7 hours studying the scriptures. After I would get up at 4 o'clock, 4:30, do my morning prayers, till 9:30, then breakfast, and then from 10 to 1 practically studying. Again after lunch 2 to 5 studying as much as possible. And of course some worship here and there. I was also in the kitchen, so served there in the morning or evening, whatever. Then from 94 onwards, I started understanding one thing: to study the scripture. Like if somebody who is watching this show, your episode, the podcast, has a desire, I want to understand the Gita, I want to understand the Puranas, I want to understand Upanishads, I want to study deeply. So the method given is that parasparanu kathanam pavanam bhagavat. You speak. Teaching scripture is the fastest way of learning scripture. This is a sutra. This is a very, very important secret that in the first canto Bhagavatam also, akhyatani api adhitani dharma shastrani yanyuta. That akhyatani means studying, adhitani means studying, akhyatani means teaching. So my schedule was Monday, I would go to a RBI colony in Bombay Central. And then Tuesday, I would go to some Nair hostel. Wednesday, I would give a talk in the temple. Thursday, I would go to Grand Medical College, JJ. Thursday, I would go to Sion, Hanuman Mandir. Friday, I would go to, one more program, which was in Kamatipura, Nagpada area. Saturday, I would go to JJ, Grand Medical College. And then Sunday, when people would come to the temple, I would speak to them. So 7 days a week, I made it a point that I'm studying 4-5 hours and also speaking at least 2 hours.
The IIT JEE of your 20s.
So that was a very, very deep sadhana for me, that I wanted to just study so deeply to understand, because that would become the foundation.
The reason I said IIT JEE is because you're an IITian, graduated. In your 20s, were you thinking of that identity at all?
See, I was not personally thinking much, but wherever I would go, people would make a big deal about introducing me as an IITian and all. You know that once you go
it's
through...
It's still happening. I'm bringing it back. Even in your 50s?
Yeah, I'm 53.
Sorry, keep continuing the timeline, sir.
So, then that was a period where my guru, Radhanath Swami, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, was written The Journey Home and The Journey Within bestsellers from Chicago, and then came to India and spent last 50 years practically creating the Chopati community and now the Govardhan Eco Village and all. So we really connected and bonded well, as they say, jam gaya relation. So he had just taken over the leadership of this project in 93-94, and I had just joined. So it was a fresh relationship, and somehow the personalities and wavelengths matched. So he was like the visionary, and then he looked at me as someone who could also help execute. So then the first service which he gave was to expand youth outreach, teaching Gita to youth across colleges in Mumbai. So practically from Ulhasnagar till Kolaba, all colleges I visited, sharing Bhagavad Gita, establishing one-time programs, then starting a regular program. And there was a team of 15 to 20 other monks also. And we established what is known as ISKON Youth Forum.
From my balcony outside, I was once glancing out. I was with a friend of mine and we saw an ISKCON monk handing out a Bhagavad Gita to people.
Correct.
Bunch of Bhagavad Gita. And my first gut feeling as a materialistic human was, damn, I'm feeling bad for that guy. But it's not like that from the monk's perspective, right?
No, we are just sharing the knowledge with others. So that's the idea of book distribution. Srila Prabhupada established book distribution. And for your information, thanks to the books distributed across the world, the donations which came from distributing those books was used for building the temples in Vrindavan, in Mayapur, in Juhu. So the Juhu temple, which is right now so famous, but in 1976-77, Srila Prabhupada sent money from the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, which is ISKCON's publishing house in Los Angeles, for funding the construction of that. So 20s was very much studying and teaching.
Hard
studying,
work.
Studying, teaching, studying, teaching, studying, teaching. Then it was 2000, 2001, Chopati, 1 acre property. We have the temple in, next to Babulnath temple. It was in a very dilapidated structure. And some of our devotees who were entrepreneurs, they grew their business. Mr. Rajiv Srivastav, Kushal Desai, and Dr. N.D. Desai, they grew their business of Apar Infotech, and it exited in that 2002-2003 period. And when that, actually they didn't want to exit, Rajiv didn't want to exit at that time, but Radhanath Swami very much wanted that we need some funds to help renovate this place because it looks very dilapidated. So he was hesitant, but because Maharaj insisted, he surrendered. And he still tells me that that moment was like, equivalent of taking sannyas. Because when you're an entrepreneur and you want to grow your business from here to here to here, and you're told to exit here, it hurts, kind of. So it was that experience, but he thought ultimately it is for a larger purpose, so he exited. And with the funds which came from that, a lot of renovation started in Chopati, ISKCON, and that was when Radhanath Swami pulled me in further into little more administration projects because I'm coming from a certain background. So then that part started coming out.
What about your own personal journey? Like how you said in your 20s, you were still second guessing a little bit because of society and people around you.
Right.
And generally, I think that's what monks
Yes.
all over the world go through.
Yes.
Were your question.
Self-introspection. And
as a 31-year-old male, I'm much more settled in who I am right now.
Right.
Is there a reflection of that?
Yes. So as I entered the 30s, there was more stability because your identity as a monk becomes more settled. So yes, people also start, and society also plays a part. They start accepting you, respecting you. So in fact, what happened was in 1995, the first 7 days a week television program started in India. It was known as Atma serial. So it was 20 minutes Bhagavad Gita lecture 7 days a week on in Mumbai channel run by the Hindujas. So that's where, because that family was close to ISKCON, Juhu, Gopal Krishna Maharaj and all. So we got a break and I started speaking on television in 1995 when I was 24 years old. And then 96, 97, Sony saw that episodes and they wanted fresh series. So parallelly, apart from my lectures in colleges, I was also speaking in Atma serial in all of these channels. So Sony, then ETC, then Astha, Sanskar. And then in 2001, when Kaun Banega Karodpati began in Star Plus, that time Star Plus also gave a break for Atma serial, but they wanted Bhagavad Gita first to 18 chapters systematic. So there were many speakers, but because I was the youngest, I was kind of given task of coordinating all speakers to make sure that when the shoot is there, they have to come on this time, like that. So that was part of that particular journey, 2001 to 2003. In that 2 years, we did a lot of shoot and completed the entire 18 chapters of Gita. And it was very popular on Star Plus. And Star Plus ran it for almost 7-8 years. Then Colors took that over and another series started. So that was the, television part. So I was very, very early mover in the television lecture series. But then by the time 2006-07 happened, Chopati temple, we did a lot of construction. I was getting, more into there was an administrator and projects person within me, the Kshatriya within me, which was getting an opportunity to come out. And I could sense that. And it also affected few of my other people around me who were very happy with me as a teacher. And they were kind of little getting bewildered. Hey, which way is this guy going? But because I was on a mandate given by Radhanath Swami and things were moving forward. So then I thought we'll complete the Chopati temple construction and then we will live happily ever after. That was the thought process. But 2008, and then Radhanath Swami then suddenly says, we should develop the project in Palghar as an eco-village. Because, people from across the world want to experience yoga Ayurveda, spiritual tourism in a very quiet ambience, and there is a lot of discussion on sustainability. So that's where the seed of Govardhan Eco Village came. And in 2009, April, exactly, now we are in April, 2009, April, exactly 15 years ago, I got first involved with that Govardhan Eco Village project. I didn't want to, but because I've been serving with Maharaj for so many years, it became like a jugalbandi. So you can't just suddenly, say no to something which you don't. So I thought I'll get involved for a year or so, set things up, and then, come back to Chopadi. That was my original thought.
But what was also happening in your head throughout all
I was thinking that, hey, what's this? If I get involved in Eco Village, my core identity as a teacher, preacher, because I was still teaching and preaching in the evenings. Although, previously daytime I would only study and evening teach. I continued teaching in the evening, but daytime a lot of administration crept in, and the amount of time I could devote to study decreased.
Also practice,
Practice was continuing same.
which is in the morning.
That is continuing without fail.
Does it go deeper with age?
With age, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper, because you start getting used to getting up early in the morning. So, as they say, saying no to temptations grudgingly is austerity. Saying no to temptations willingly is called higher taste. So, that is what is known as param drishtva, higher taste. So then automatically that happened. So that morning part, I never had any issues ever, all through this last 30 years journey. That has been my core strength.
Because a lot of people associate deeper sadhana or deeper practice with the amount of time you're dedicating to it.
Yes, that's true.
But within, say hypothetically, if it's just 1 hour, 1.5 hours for all these years, within that 1 hour, 1.5 hours, can your sadhana go deep?
It can go deep. Definitely it can go deep. Why? Because when you start taking up administrative responsibilities, project responsibilities, you start dealing with teams. So as a teacher, I'm telling you Gita, you accept it quietly. Then we say, let us start discussing on what should be the best arrangement for this podcast. Then suddenly I'm no longer a teacher for you. Then you and me are talking of a topic which could have multiple options. So then suddenly we come at equal level, and where my opinions can be rebutted, can be questioned. That's what administration and management does. So when I sit in a management meeting in a group, each and every opinion of mine can be questioned. So what it does to me, it humbles me. So I may have spent less time with the books in those years of administration, but I gained deeper insights into the knowledge within those books through realizations.
The experiences become a guru.
Experience, it percolates in. I don't have to give lecture on humility. People around smash you so many times that you actually taste humility. So therefore, reading about humility is tasting the bottle from outside. But when people deal with you in ways which you don't expect, then you are actually tasting humility. So therefore, application Vigyan helps you. And then what ultimately percolates the most is when the people who are giving you instructions are pleased with what you're doing. So then that 2009 onwards, the Govardhan Eco Village was a very tough project in the middle of nowhere in Palghar. A great team came together. We went through challenges together. And that project brought me much closer to Radhanath Swami also, because it was his long-standing unfulfilled desire of something which Srila Prabhupada wanted in America in 1970s, which he was trying to fulfill here. So when you go through, various kinds of challenges together, it's baptism by fire. So you kind of also grow closer. So I feel that I started the Eco Village project when I was 39. So 39 to 53 has been the most challenging period in terms of the project as such, but it has also been the most spiritually enlivening and deepening period for me personally. And my own personal practices also grew to a next level of conviction. over the years as I got more and more deeply involved in the project. So, yes, and interestingly, as in monks' lives, as you become older, more established, more serene, more composed, more realized, people start getting attracted to you more when you're older than when you're young. So therefore, I would say that at 53, I have to be more careful about what I am doing and who's getting attracted to me, and to make sure that I maintain my monkhood than when I was at 23.
So you're so attractive. I get what you're saying though. Because at its core, the process of monkhood is to run away from Maya. I'm sorry if I'm using the term run away loosely. There's Maya all around us.
Yeah.
And even this attraction which you're facing in the 53rd year of your life is a form of Maya.
Yes. So Maya is there everywhere and trying to create hindrance, because Maya is a servant of Krishna to make sure that only the qualified enter the spiritual world. Those who are not qualified have to be taken. It's an examination body, testing body.
Death is the exam, life is the preparation.
Exactly.
Let's end this episode there, sir.
Thank you.
Deep thank you from my heart.
Thank you so much for such a fascinating range of questions. And I think I'm waiting for the day when you become totally absorbed in the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavad Puran, and I can have deep, long conversations on those topics, because you are blessed to be able to really take people deep into conversations. You have that extraordinary ability. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. My last request to you is, because you said that, because you said I am blessed with that ability, there is a line in the Bhagavad Gita which says that even abilities are God given.
Correct.
What is that line? And just give a small explanation of it.
So Krishna says, Paurusham Nrishu. I am the ability in man. Right. So Krishna in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is describing various things. In the 7th chapter also says, Rasoham apsu kaunteya prabhasmishi suryo pranava sarvedeshu shabdakhe, all these things. And then he says that Paurusham Drishu, Kaushalam Paurusham Drishu, that I am the ability in man. Paurusham means people. Drishu is Drishu is in the people. Paurusham is ability.
That is my response to you. Like, it's all God given. We are just channels.
One more thing in the end, he says, Yadyat vibhuti mat sattvam shrimat urjitam evava. Whatever spark of splendor you see anywhere is coming from me only. So in the previous verse which I said, Shabdah ke Paurusham Drishu, I am the Shabda in ether and I am the ability in man. And then he says, anyway, forget getting into details, anything which attracts your attention, yat vibhuti mat sat, any vibhuti you say, shrimat, urjitam, powerful, very shrimat, beautiful, attractive, tat evavagachatva, mama teja amsha sambhava, it is only spark of my splendor.
Gauranga Das Prabhu, thank you. Lots of love. Our common friend Harshil has often asked me what it's like speaking to Gauranga Das Prabhu for that long. And I thought a lot about it when I was with him. I took a 10-second pause and then I said, it feels like having a bath, but for your soul. So thank you for today's cleanliness-oriented episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Means a lot that you give us your time.
Thank you, Ranveer. Best wishes.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the episode with Gauranga Das Prabhu. His Hindi episode will also be live in a few days, so make sure you check that one out as well. What I will say is that meeting evolved souls like this is the biggest blessing of my career. It's the moments like this where I feel the maximum amount of gratitude for my job, for my surroundings, and for my life. So I hope that you feel the same, especially for you long-time consumers of TRS, thank you for your support over the years. I know many of you wait for these spiritual episodes, and we create a lot of episodes with Rajashi Nandi and other Tantra themed guests. But I genuinely believe that when you're growing spiritually, you need to also pay attention to the completely sattvic, completely Vaishnavite angle on Sanatan Dharma, on spirituality. So I truly hope that you gained a lot of knowledge and a lot of soul saf safai from this one. TRS will be back with many more epic spiritual episodes. Thank you for listening in.